The history of the Japanese Navy is long and full of impressive successes and brutal failures. In the first half of the 20th century, the fleet of the Land of the Rising Sun was the most powerful in the Pacific Ocean and competed only with the fleet of the United States. This competition eventually led to open war, which ended with the death of the Japanese fleet, the defeat of its homeland, and in fact a legislative ban on any attempts to build something like that. However, 70 years later, in the first half of the 21st century, we see a new Japanese fleet, which of course is much more modest than its ancestor, but nevertheless not nearly as harmless as it is commonly believed. And here complex thoughts arise, first of all at the sight of their aircraft-carrying ships. Formally, Japan doesn't have aircraft carriers since about 1944, but in reality, today we will look at the Izumo-class helicopter destroyer and try to answer the question, is it possible to build two aircraft carriers without anyone noticing? The history of the Izumo class should probably be started with its predecessors, the Hyuga-class helicopter destroyers. Two ships, the JS Hyuga and JS Ise, were adopted in 2009 and 2011 and were classified as escorts, destroyers, and anti-submarine ships equipped with helicopters. In terms of performance and dimensions, they could well be attributed to light aircraft carriers, such as for example the Italian Giuseppe Garibaldi or the Spanish Príncipe de Asturias. At the time of creation, these were the largest Japanese warships since the Second World War, but these records were not enough. When the Hyuga-class ships were first built and put into service in 2009, Japan celebrated the 22nd anniversary of the Heisei era. This is the motto of the reign of Emperor Akihito, and not just the name of the era of movies about Godzilla. The Ministry of Defense honored this date with the official announcement of a new program for the creation of another series of helicopter destroyers, the Izumo class. It was announced that the new ships will be more advanced than the Hyuga, replace the old Shirane-class destroyers, and carry out the tasks already accepted for the fleet in border defense, anti-submarine warfare, and rescue operations. At first glance, it may seem that these are just slightly improved Hyuga ships, until you take a closer look at the characteristics. The length of Izumo is 248 meters, 814 feet, against 197 meters, 646 feet at the Hyuga. Total displacement is 27,000 tons, against 19,000 respectively. Having barely built the largest ships since World War II, the shipbuilders announced the creation of vessels 40% larger. Moreover, while the Hyuga can take on board 18 aircraft, Izumo can already accommodate 28. The construction contract was awarded to IHI Corporation, which built the Hyuga, and in 2012, the first ship was laid down at the Yokohama shipyard. It was soon announced that another ship would be built in this class. The lead ship, like the entire class, received the name Izumo in honor of one of the old provinces of Japan, the current Shimane Prefecture, and the Izumo cruiser from the times of the Russo-Japanese War. The second ship was named Kaga, in honor respectively of the province of Kaga, the current Ishikawa Prefecture. When mentioning the name Kaga, the Japanese officials always emphasized that the ship was named after the province and not as a successor to the names in the Navy. For an ally may be puzzled, the predecessor of the current destroyer Kaga was the Kaga aircraft carrier, which took part in the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. Curiously, the Izumo was launched in August 2012, half a year after the laying, and entered service in 2015. The Kaga, laid down at the end of 2013, entered service in 2017. Two fairly large aircraft-carrying ships have come all the way in, give or take, 3 years, a very impressive indicator of the performance of the Japanese industry. So, what did they build so quickly and effectively? Izumo is a fairly large ship, equipped with a solid flat deck and a large island superstructure on the starboard side. The deck has 5 marked areas arranged in a row, as well as 2 elevators connecting the ship's flight deck with a large hangar located below. This hangar is almost twice the size of the Hyuga hangar and can accommodate up to 28 aircraft, including helicopters and large tilt rotors, such as the V-22 Osprey. The ship is designed for a crew and air wing of up to 970 people, plus 500 Marines and up to 50 different vehicles weighing up to 3.5 tons. No tanks. They have everything they need: dining rooms, a hospital, living quarters, and so on. The power plant is represented by a combined complex consisting of 4 turbines connected in pairs to the shafts of 2 propellers. They are located on the lower decks, with exhaust gases going through the stacks of pipes, leading to the superstructure above the deck. The total capacity of the power plant reaches 134,000 horsepower, and the propellers run by them are capable of accelerating the ship to 30 knots. The ship's electronic complex is equipped with a wide range of instruments, sonars, and radar stations, including those equipped with phased array antennas. It is also not without serious protection, electronic warfare systems, and various jammers against both missiles and torpedoes. Moreover, almost all of this sophisticated equipment is made in Japan and at the same time is not inferior to the best world counterparts. Again, not bad for the guys who have very modest experience in creating such systems. Of course, electronics alone cannot protect the ship, so there are also more crude methods of defense. The ship is equipped with 2 pairs of air defense systems, the classic Phalanx system with a 20mm 6-barreled Gatling cannon, and the similar in platform RIM 116 CRAM system, which instead of a cannon has a launcher with 11 missiles. 2 installations are located after the ship and 2 more in front, Phalanx at the very bow and CRAM on the superstructure in front of the island. Finally, the main toolkit of a helicopter destroyer, the helicopters. The basis of the Izumo Air Group is the SH-60K helicopters, the Japanese localization of the American SH-60 Seahawk, which are manufactured by Mitsubishi. They take over search, transport, and anti-submarine functions. Plus, as the more heavy machines, there are the MCH-101, also local versions of the Italian Augusta-Westland AW-101, manufactured in Japan by Kawasaki Heavy Industries. In addition to, again, transport and rescue functions, the MCH is engaged in the search and neutralization of minefields. Under normal conditions, there are 7 Seahawks and 2 101s on board, with the possibility of increasing the group up to 14 units. And now the moments that military experts from all over the world argue about. When describing Izumo, it is necessary to say that this is a destroyer, otherwise an inexperienced person may think that this is some kind of amphibious assault ship like the USS America, or even an aircraft carrier. Yes, it is small, but for example the Italian Cavour or the old British Invincible are very close to it, meanwhile having no problem being considered aircraft carriers. At the same time, there is always talk in military circles about the potential conversion of helicopter destroyers into full-fledged aircraft carriers. These theories are based not only in the external signs, but in the potential, which was clearly laid in the ships from the very beginning, and which so far has not been realized. First of all, this concerns the hangar, which with its very decent size, accommodates a strangely small number of vehicles. For example, the French assault ship Mistral, being much more compact, can carry a significantly larger group of helicopters. At first glance, we are talking about a simply incorrect layout and irrational use of space. But if you look closely, you may think that not only helicopters and tiltrotors just stand here, but also the machines more familiar to aircraft carriers, planes. At the moment, there are 2 obstacles to this theory. First, the Japanese constitution carries a post-war legacy and puts many restrictions on the scale and capabilities of the country's armed forces, meaning that the self-defense forces are not supposed to have aircraft carriers. And second, for all its decent dimensions, Izumo doesn't have any arresting gears, no catapults, no springboards. The classic naval planes that we can see on many aircraft carriers are simply not capable of working here. The first obstacle is quite difficult to overcome. After all, changes in the constitution, especially its military part, is a political and very serious issue that can have consequences not only in the society within Japan, but also in the international agenda around it. But nevertheless, attempts to make some adjustments to give the military more room to maneuver are being made more actively and often. The second obstacle, airplanes. Conventional sea-based fighters and attack aircraft such as the FA-18 or Rafale-M cannot be used here. They require more space and aircraft carrier equipment, which would be too difficult to put on Izumo. The most optimal would be the use of aircraft with short or vertical takeoff and landing. Previously, this topic was not really discussed, because the only aircraft of this type that was actually used was the Harrier, which for all its legendary status is already pretty outdated. But now the situation has changed. The F-35B has appeared. The F-35 Lightning II is the latest 5th generation fighter jet created by Lockheed Martin and is already on the stage of serial production. In fact, it is a family of aircraft made up of 3 modifications: a base fighter, a naval fighter with a conventional configuration, and a short and vertical takeoff and landing fighter, the so-called STOVL. These fighters are plagued with many problems, however, it is difficult to ignore their potential. Japan already has several dozen F-35A base fighters and is waiting for more than 100 to be delivered, and nothing prevents them from ordering an additional batch of their F-35B modifications. And having received such aircraft and slightly modifying Izumo, the Japanese will be able to get 2 full-fledged aircraft carriers with fighters on board, for the first time since probably World War II. And that's it for this curious story. Izumo and Kaga may remain just large helicopter destroyers, or they may become the beginning of a new Japanese navy. We can only hope that this new fleet will not repeat the fate of its predecessor. What do you think? Do they have a chance to regain the title of a naval power, or is it all just playing with decks? Write your comments below, and of course, subscribe to the channel. There's still a lot of interesting things on the horizon.